Most people think a pair of Jordans is the peak of sneaker culture. It isn't even close. In fact, to the people who actually live at the top of this world, the collectors, the resellers, the designers who've been inside this industry for decades, a Jordan 1 is basically the entry ticket. It's where the conversation starts, not where it ends. And here's what makes this interesting. Two people can both call themselves sneaker collectors. One spent $200 on a pair of Nike Dunks. The other spent $400,000 on a single pair that was made for one person, never worn, and will never be made again. Same hobby, completely different universe. And here's the thing most people miss about sneakers. This stopped being about footwear a long time ago. The global sneaker resale market is worth over $6 billion. Hedge funds have invested in sneaker indices. Museums have acquired pairs for permanent collections. A shoe that cost $180 at retail has sold at auction for $1.8 million. This is not a fashion story. This is a market story, an access story, and at the very top, a craft story. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 7 levels of sneakers. Let's get into it. Level 1, the entry point, $80, $200. Every collector starts somewhere, and level 1 is where most people first cross the line from buying shoes to buying sneakers. There's a difference. Buying shoes is functional. Buying sneakers is intentional. At level 1, we're talking Nike Air Force 1S Adidas Stan Smiths, New Balance 574S Converse Chuck Taylors, Vans Old Schools. These are the shoes that built the culture. Not because they're rare, not because they're expensive, because they're correct. The Air Force One was designed by Bruce Kilgore in 1982. It was the first basketball shoe to use Nike Air cushioning. It was discontinued, brought back by consumer demand, and has been in continuous production ever since. Over 1,700 colorways, worn by everyone from school kids in Baltimore to Jay-Z to the President of the United States. It is the most produced Nike shoe in history, and it still sells out in certain colorways within minutes. That's not a fashion product. That's a cultural institution in a shoebox. At level 1, you're buying into the language. You're learning what a colorway means. You're understanding why a clean white pair means something different from a beat-up yellowed pair. You're starting to develop taste. And in sneaker culture, taste is everything. Most people spend years at level 1. Some spend their entire lives here and build collections worth tens of thousands of dollars without ever leaving this tier. But a lot of people discover something at level 1 that surprises them. They realize the shoe is connected to something bigger than itself, and that's when things start getting serious. Level 2, the culture tier, $200, $500. This is where sneaker culture actually lives for most people who consider themselves collectors. Level 2 is Jordan Brand. It's Yeezy. It's Nike SB Dunks. It's the shoes that have waiting lists, raffle entries, and SNKRS app crashes. The shoes that people line up outside stores at 4 a.m. for. The shoes that sell out in 11 seconds online and appear on StockX an hour later at 3 times the retail price. The Air Jordan 1 is the anchor of this tier. Designed in 1985 for Michael Jordan, a rookie who the NBA fined $5,000 every game he wore them because they violated the league's uniform policy. Nike paid the fines. The controversy made the shoe, and 40 years later the Jordan 1 is still the most culturally significant sneaker ever made. Every Jordan 1 colorway tells a story. The Chicago, the Bread, the Royal, the Shadow. These aren't just color combinations. They're chapters in a history that millions of people feel personally connected to, even people who weren't alive when the shoe launched. Yeezy changed this tier when Kanye West moved from Nike to Adidas in 2013. The Yeezy Boost 350 launched in 2015. It sold out in minutes. It resold for multiples of retail immediately. And it proved that a single celebrity collaboration could reshape an entire market overnight. At level 2, you're not just buying a shoe. You're participating in a moment. And the question of whether you got the shoe at retail or paid resale says something in the culture about your access and your timing, both of which matter enormously at every level above this one. Level 3, the enthusiast tier, $500, $2,000. This is where the casual buyer drops off and the real collector emerges. At level 3, the conversation shifts from hype to knowledge. The shoes here are not the ones everyone is talking about. They're the ones that people who really know sneakers talk about. New Balance collaborations with designers like Teddy Santis, Joe Grondin, and Saleh Bembury. Adidas collaborations with Wales Bonner, Craig Green, and Farrell. Nike collaborations with Sacai, Undercover, and Ace Frenim. These are shoes made for people who already understand the culture deeply enough to appreciate what makes them different. The New Balance 550 with Aimé Leon Dore changed how an entire generation thought about New Balance. One collaboration, One clean colorway. And suddenly a brand that had been the punchline of sneaker culture for years became the most coveted name in the room. That's the power of the right collaboration at the right moment. At level 3, you're also entering the world of vintage and dead stock. Original 1985 Jordan 1S in unworn condition. 1990s Nike Air Max 1S in original colorways. Early 2000s Nike SB Dunks from the Paul Rodriguez era. Shoes that were $65 at retail and are now $3,000 in a collector's cabinet because the culture eventually found their price. This is where sneakers start functioning like art. Not metaphorically, literally. The same mechanisms that drive art collecting. Scarcity, provenance, cultural significance, condition. Drive the value of shoes at level 3 and above. Level 4. Luxury enters. $2,000, $10,000. At level 4, the fashion world and the sneaker world collide. And the result is something that neither world fully predicted. This is the tier of designer collaborations. Dior x Nike, Chanel x Pharrell, Louis Vuitton x Air Force One. Shoes that exist at the intersection of streetwear and haute couture. Shoes that are sold in luxury boutiques alongside $5,000 handbags and reviewed in Vogue alongside couture collections. The Dior x Air Jordan 1 is the defining piece of this tier. Designed by Kim Jones, Dior's artistic director of menswear, in 2020. Only 8,500 pairs produced worldwide. Retail price $2,000. Within months, pairs were trading at $15,000 on the secondary market. Within a year, some colorways crossed $30,000. Louis Vuitton x Nike Air Force One, designed by Virgil Abloh in 2022. One of his final projects before his death, sold at auction through Sotheby's for prices ranging from $2,700 to $352,800 per pair. The most expensive pair was worn by Abloh himself. Provenance, as in every other luxury market, creates a completely different category of value. At level 4, the sneaker is no longer primarily a cultural object. It's a luxury object. The brands surrounding it, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, bring their full heritage and craftsmanship to the shoe. The materials change. The construction changes. The context in which the shoe is presented, sold, and discussed changes entirely. And the collector at level 4 is often a different person from the collector at level 2. They came to sneakers through fashion, not through sport, through aesthetics, not through culture. And their presence in the market changed what the top of this world looks like permanently. Level 5. Invitation only. $10,000, $50,000. At level 5, money is no longer the primary filter. Access is. This is the world of friends and family pairs, sample pairs, player exclusives, shoes that were never meant to be sold, and in many cases, legally cannot be resold under the agreements that came with them. Friends and family pairs are produced in quantities of sometimes 10 to 30 pairs for a specific release. They go to the designers, the athletes, the executives, the inner circle. They are not available at retail. They are not available on StockX. The only way to get one is to know someone who has one and is willing to part with it. And those conversations happen privately between people who already operate at this level. Player exclusive colorways, PES, are made specifically for individual athletes. A colorway built for LeBron James's mother. A shoe made for Kobe Bryant in a colorway only he wore during a specific playoff run. These are objects with a single original owner whose identity is part of the shoe's value. They are documented, photographed, sometimes authenticated through game-worn provenance, and they trade in a market that operates largely outside public platforms. Nike's Tier 0 accounts, the retailer relationships that determine who gets the most limited allocations, function at this level too. Being a Tier 0 account means your store gets product that no other store receives. The retailers who hold these accounts protect them aggressively. The collectors who have relationships with those retailers protect those relationships the same way. At level 5, the dynamic shifts completely. You don't go looking for the shoe. The shoe, if you're at this level, comes to you. And how it comes to you says everything about where you sit in this world. Level 6. Artist and designer collaborations. $50,000, $200,000. Level 6 is not a market you enter. It's a market you're recognized into. At this level, we're talking about shoes that exist at the intersection of sneakers and fine art. Collaborations between Nike or Adidas and contemporary artists whose work hangs in major museums. Shoes produced in editions of 1 to 5 pairs. Shoes that were exhibited before they were worn, or never worn at all. KAWS has collaborated with Jordan Brand multiple times. His most limited pairs, produced in single digits, trade at prices that would be unremarkable in a contemporary art auction context. Because that's exactly what they are. Art objects that happen to be shaped like shoes. Takashi Murakami, Tom Sachs, Daniel Arsham. These are artists whose sneaker collaborations are collected by the same people who collect their paintings and sculptures. The shoe is not separate from the art practice. It is part of it. Tom Sachs x Nike Mars Yard is the defining piece of this tier. First released in 2012 in an edition so small it was essentially a friends and family release. The shoe was designed around the aesthetic of NASA equipment. Utilitarian, honest, every material chosen for function first. It became one of the most sought-after sneakers in collector history not because of hype, but because of genuine design conviction. Pairs trade at $10,000 to $30,000 depending on condition and size. At level 6, the shoe has fully crossed into the art market. It is stored, insured, displayed, and discussed in the same terms as any other significant contemporary object. The person who owns it is not primarily a sneaker collector. They are a collector who happens to own sneakers alongside everything else. Level 7. The commission. No retail, no resale, no record. Level 7 doesn't have a release date. It doesn't have a raffle. It doesn't have a retail price. It has a conversation, one that most people in the sneaker world will never be close enough to have. At level 7, we're talking about fully commissioned one-of-one sneakers. Shoes made for a single person to their exact specification by the best craftspeople in the world. Not a Nike customization service. Not a painted pair from an Instagram artist. A shoe designed from the ground up. Last, construction, material, sole, everything. For one human being. Concepts like this exist at the edges of what luxury fashion houses are beginning to explore. Hermès has produced footwear at this level. Berluti, the Parisian shoemaker owned by LVMH, operates entirely in this register, producing bespoke shoes where the client's foot is last fitted. The leather is hand-selected from a specific tannery, and the construction takes months. Their sneaker-adjacent pieces at this level represent the highest expression of what footwear can be when the entire process is subordinated to a single client's requirements. Independent bespoke shoemakers, names that don't appear on Instagram, don't have waiting lists because they don't accept applications, operate entirely through personal introduction. Make shoes at this level for clients who have already exhausted every other option. The shoes they produce are documented privately, worn privately, and passed through estates the way significant objects always have been. At level 7, the shoe is no longer footwear. It is not even primarily a cultural object. It is a portrait, an object made with complete intention for one specific person that will outlast the culture that surrounded its making. At level 1, you choose from what's available. At level 7, what's available is whatever you can imagine, and whatever the best hands in the world can execute. Here's what this world is really about underneath the hype and the resale prices and the SNKRS app crashes. Sneakers started as athletic equipment. Rubber soles and canvas uppers designed to help people run faster and jump higher. That's it. Functional objects with no cultural weight whatsoever. And then culture happened to them. Hip-hop happened to them. Basketball happened to them. Skateboarding happened to them. Street art happened to them. And one by one, the people who defined those cultures chose specific shoes as part of how they expressed who they were. And the shoes absorbed that meaning. And that meaning became value. And that value became a market worth billions. But here's the thing that gets lost in the market conversation. At every level of this world, what people are actually buying is connection. Connection to a moment, to a culture, to a person, to a story that the shoe carries, and that no other object can tell in quite the same way. A Jordan 1 Chicago connects you to 1985, to Michael Jordan, to the NBA, to a version of cool that has outlasted every trend that came after it. A Tom Sachs Mars Yard connects you to a design philosophy, to NASA, to the conviction that honesty in materials is a form of beauty. A one-of-one commissioned pair connects you to the single craftsperson who made it and the single moment in your life it was made to mark. That's what the levels are really about. Not price, not hype, not resale value. The proof that an object made with full intention, for a specific person, at a specific moment, carries something that no algorithm can generate and no machine can replicate. If this changed how you think about what a sneaker actually is, subscribe to Scale Brief. Every week we break down a world most people see from the outside and never fully understand. Drop a comment below. Which level are you at right now? And which pair, from any level, would you add to your collection if money wasn't the question? And tell me what world you want us to break down next. Private jets, super yachts, fine dining, bespoke tailoring. Drop it in the comments, because the next video is whatever this community decides. See you there.